I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is Future Signal. On this episode, let's dive into how rare is owning one Bitcoin. And I want to say that this episode was truly inspired by a comment that was left on episode 15, where I was talking about why 99% of people in the world will never own 0.1 Bitcoin. The comment was left by Tyrone Ingram. I don't know if this is his actual name. I don't know if it's a he. I don't know who this person is. I don't know if it's their pseudonym, but thank you for leaving this comment. And the comment says, what does owning one BTC put you? And what I believe they're trying to ask is, how rare is this, right? How many people on the earth probably own this amount of Bitcoin? And then also, how rare is that? And that's what we hope to dive into today in this episode. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, consider going to YouTube. I'll leave that link in the episode description because this is an entire presentation. So the answer is, the TLDR, right, is that it's super rare. There's around under, and if you look at the line, 1 million wallets that own one Bitcoin or more. And here it is under the line, but I had to zoom in even more, and it's 992,099 wallets. So right under a million. And this number is from February 20th, 2025, okay? When the Bitcoin price was 98,000. As of this recording, the Bitcoin price is under 90. So this number could be more as people, buy the dip, or maybe it's less as people panic sell. I'm not sure. We're going to be using, however, 992,000 for the remainder of the episode. So that way we're not thinking about the 99 wallets, unfortunately. But yeah, 992,000 wallets. Just as a refresher, going back to episode 15, on episode 15, we talked about how there's only 4.5 million wallets with more than 0.1 Bitcoin. And when you divide 4.5 million divided by 8 billion, you get roughly 1 out of every 1,778 people on the planet, out of 8 billion people, that's the working number we're using for the global population, has 0.1 Bitcoin. That number alone is already shocking. So you can imagine what owning one Bitcoin is going to be. When you think about 992,000 wallets, you divide that by 8 billion, you're left with 1.24 people out of 10,000. Okay? That's wild. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, because exactly, how rare is that? How rare is 992,000 wallets? It's as if everyone in Austin, Texas, basically more or less, because Austin, Texas has around 974,000 people that live there, or habitants. It's as if everyone in Austin, Texas had a wallet and it had one Bitcoin on it, and then nowhere else in Texas, in the United States, in the Americas, in the rest of the world has wallets with one Bitcoin. If you've never been to Austin, it really doesn't matter. The idea is that the amount of people who have potentially wallets with more than one Bitcoin can fit in a small city in the United States. Maybe that didn't do it. So I wanted to get into percent of rarity. And what I'm trying to do here is take that percentage, the 0.000124, and then multiply it, in this example, by the amount of people that live in New York. So there's around 8.5 million people that live in New York City. And if you multiply that by that, the percentage or the decimal, it's as if only 1,054 people lived in New York City. And if you've ever been to New York City, that amount of people would easily fit in Times Square. So it would definitely feel like an apocalyptic situation if you were in New York City and there were only 1,054 people between all 5 boroughs. But that is the same weight as it is having potentially 992,000 people only own one Bitcoin to the 8 billion population. It's the same as if you were in Madison Square Garden, a capacity that has around 19,500, and there would be roughly 2 to 3 people in the entire arena. That's how rare it is. And if you were sitting in there with that few amount of people, you'd be like, this is really weird. We're definitely in the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. It's as if you went to Disney World, Magic Kingdom in Florida, which has a capacity around 100K. If you go down to that area, there's Epcot, there's Universal, there's all these. We're just focusing on Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom has a capacity around 100K. It's as if there were 12 people in Magic Kingdom. That is the same weight as 992,000 people potentially having one Bitcoin compared to 8 billion people population. So only 12 people. It's as if in the United States, instead of having around 345 million people, if it were weighted the same as 1.24 per 10,000 people, it would be as if there were only 42,780 people in the entire United States. Okay? This is a crazy, rarity. Crazy, crazy, crazy rare. And I want to go back, and I've said a couple times, it's as if 992,000 had a Bitcoin, and I'm trying to be conditional there because while this is the amount of wallets that are shown as of February 20, 2025 to hold one Bitcoin or more, likely there's many holders in Bitcoin who have more than one Bitcoin on multiple wallets. So I actually think this real number is probably closer to somewhere 400,000 to 500,000, but it's really difficult to tell because anyone could open up 50 different wallets and put one Bitcoin in 50 different wallets. So that's something that you need to take into account. These numbers here, when you think about 12 people in Disney World, it really could be 3 people, 4 people. When you think about 2 to 3 people in Madison Square Garden, it could be 1 or less. When you think about 1,000 people across all 5 boroughs in New York City, it could be 250 or 500. It could be way less. So yeah, that's where I want to say whole coiners are likely less than the 992,000 wallets that hold 1 or more Bitcoin. And just finishing out here, if owning 0.1 Bitcoin is rare, then being a whole coiner, owning 1 Bitcoin or more, is the holy grail of digital scarcity. And I wanted to finish off with this meme, and I'm going to kind of zoom in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, I'm probably not going to explain it to you. But basically, the idea is that from 2010 through 2020, through 2030 and 2040, having one whole Bitcoin is going to be is something that was maybe poo-pooed in 2010 to 2020. But even today, it's already exceedingly rare. Go back to episode 15. Where I really break down some of the economics of why most people on the planet are never going to be able to actually afford 0.1 Bitcoin, which is still 90% less of what 1 Bitcoin would be. So by the end of 2040, as according to this meme, I do think there's probably going to be roughly only 100,000 wallets, if not less than that amount of people that actually hold one coin, especially as institutional adoption and high net worth individuals get a hold of this. It's just going to become very rare as the price goes up. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Please go ahead and subscribe. And like I said, this was a comment-driven episode. So if you're listening to this or watching this, leave a comment if you want to hear any type of other content around Bitcoin. But please subscribe, whether you're listening to this on a podcast platform or you're watching on YouTube. And be sure to follow us on socials at Future Signal Pod. Thank you so much for checking out this episode, and I'll see you next time.